Welcome to the Roving Nature podcast, where we'll explore all things nature and conservation. I'm your host, Matt Bryant, and I welcome you to join me as we hear from people who are passionate about nature and learn from those who work tirelessly to conserve and protect our precious land, water, and wildlife. We'll explore natural places near and far, dive into the magic and wonders of the natural world, and share inspiration and insight from naturalists, artists, teachers, researchers, outdoor enthusiasts, and others who have made protecting and celebrating the natural world their life's calling.
Oh, this beautiful day outside.
On a mid-September afternoon in 1968, among swaying pines and gently rolling hills in a forest near Durham, North Carolina, a young race car driver named Richard Petty rounded the bend on what was the last lap of the last race to be held at the Occoneechee Speedway. In a cloud of dust, he won the race, known as the Hillsboro 150, and it marked the last time a NASCAR race took place on a dirt track. This racetrack also featured NASCAR's first female driver, Louise Smith, and others who would go on to become racing legends. The racetrack was closed that same year due to efforts by the Orange County Anti-Racing Association, which allegedly formed due to the lack of local church attendance on Sundays. The speedway is named for the Native American Occoneechee band of the Saponi Nation, who lived along the Eno River in the Piedmont region of North Carolina and Virginia well into the early 1700s. The Occoneechee controlled a key section of the regional trading path, but were attacked and largely dispersed in a conflict with colonists during what is known as Bacon's Rebellion. This might sound like an odd place to start a nature podcast, but it's also a perfect one. The racetrack is now known as the Occoneechee Speedway Trail, a 4-mile hiking trail that meanders through a pine forest as it hugs the Eno River. Located in Hillsboro, North Carolina, remnants of the site's glorious racing days are still evident. You can see an old rusted shell of one of the race cars, various outbuildings that served as concessions or restrooms, and the foundation of what used to be the bleachers where the fans sat, then stood as the race cars roared by. As you hike the original oval racetrack, your feet are cushioned by the spongy pine needle floor. The 44-acre previous speedway is one of only 3 racetracks listed on the National Registry of Historic Places, and it's also part of the North Carolina Mountains to Sea Trail System. But more importantly, and the real focus of today's show, is that the Occoneechee Speedway Trail is featured as hiking and running trail number 18 in the book entitled Trails and Treats, A Hiker and Runner's Guide to Great Trails and Good Eats in North Carolina. Authored by Palmer McIntyre and Hollis Oberlies, this amazing guide features 30 great trails throughout the mountains, Triad, Triangle, and Charlotte regions of North Carolina, and each featured trail is paired up with suggestions for great places to grab food or drink at the end of your hike or run. The book also features wonderful quotes, great recipe ideas, and tidbits on safety, along with local cultural and historical trivia and other useful information like how to extend your hike if you want to go even further. The book is a unique and inspiring guide for both new and seasoned trail enthusiasts. I'm here at the Speedway Trail today with Palmer and Hollis to talk about the book and how they went about creating it and what inspires them about nature and getting out on our state's amazing variety of trails. Palmer McIntyre is conservation planner at the Piedmont Land Conservancy, which she has been involved with since 1996. She helped launch and now leads the North Carolina Great Trails State Coalition and served as the director for the 2023 North Carolina Year of the Trail, a statewide campaign to celebrate our state's amazing trails. She was inspired by nature at a young age by her father and grandmother, and is a Greensboro, North Carolina native who loves to spend time on her family's forever protected farm in Ashe County. Hollis Oberlies has been a lifelong runner, and her passion for pairing trail running and great foodie stops was the inspiration for the book we're talking about today. She is the owner and operator of a graphic design business in Greensboro, North Carolina, and her love and talent for design helped inspire the Trails and Treats Guide. Hollis's love of running extends into the community, where she coaches a middle school cross-country team, which raises funds for local causes. She and her family can often be found exploring the many great trails in our region.
Thank you both for being here. I'm very excited to hear about where we are in the book and more about the both of you. First of all, it's a beautiful book. It's a beautiful design. It's accessible. It's fun, it's concise, it's practical, and it's really interesting. So there's a lot of stuff packed into this book that really made an impression on me. I think it inspires people to learn and explore more, which I think is fantastic. And it's a great way to connect with and learn about the natural and cultural aspects of these locations. And there's some great tidbits in here that I love, like the quotes that are nicely placed in each section, the tips for things to think about and consider when you're going out and exploring, and the recipes, which are just fantastic. In the book, we are at trail number 18. They are numbered in the book. There's an index and a nice map that highlights where these trails are. We're at number 18, the historic Okanochee Speedway. Let's start with that. Why did we pick this out of all the sites in the book?
So Matt, thank you for coming out to Okanochee Speedway with us. We're so excited to be one of your podcast features. Okanochee Speedway was the bit of inspiration to start the book. The combination of Weaver Street Market and having this amazing space to walk or run that's fairly well known in the Triangle, but I'm not so sure about outside of the Triangle. This goes back to a little bit of history about the book itself. In 2020, when we were all spending a lot of time with our close either friends or family in little pods, everybody wanted to be outdoors doing things because it was the safe space that we understood we could explore and still do safely. My family in particular like to hike, but we are all runners as well. So we really did make use of time together on trails especially, and Okanochee Speedway was one of them. The trail here is so close to downtown of Hillsboro that it's very easy to find a little place either to go eat or get a coffee or something like that. So during 2020, my son Declan and I had eaten through all of the oatmeal raisin cookies from Weaver Street that we had, and we were scheming on the idea that it really would be great to plan an outing to come to Weaver Street Market, but we'd need our exercise beforehand. So actually that day was an August day, and so we'd been a few months into all of the pandemic, but that was where the title of the book came to be, which was somebody should write some sort of guide about where you can find great treats and pair them with places to go and hike and run and be outdoors. So I had journaled about that and sort of set it aside, stewed on it, but had written down trails and treats. So a few months later, Palmer and I got together to go for a walk, because this happens when I go back and look at things that I've written, and it was still stewing in my mind that this seemed like a very interesting idea. So it was maybe March of 2021 that we went for a walk in Latham Park in Greensboro near my office, and talked about the idea of maybe pairing our skills and our love of the trails to being able to also work on a project together. And it didn't take Palmer too long to say, let's try it.
One of the things I love about this book is that it's a collaboration between Hollis and Palmer, not only as professionals and nature lovers, but as friends. Palmer talks about the value of that friendship and how it has played into their work on the book.
Well, one thing I'd like to share is that Hollis and I have been great friends for a long time.
Our daughters were both first graders together at Lindley Elementary School when Hollis's family moved to Greensboro from the Chapel Hill area, and they immediately became really close friends, and we had so many common interests, so we became good friends and just started doing a lot of adventures together, and our families would do adventures together. We would go on hikes and bike rides and such with all the kids, and so we have had this long history of doing things together, including a 50-mile backpacking trip on the Appalachian Trail with our daughters during COVID and riding our bicycles across the state of Iowa. And so, yeah, we love being outside and love adventures. And so in March of 2021, when she approached me with this idea, I had never thought about writing a book before. Who knows even how to start on something like that? But we were in my professional life with the Great Trails State Coalition, which is a statewide coalition we had just in the early stages been forming. We were beginning to plan a campaign called North Carolina Year of the Trail. And that was going to be in 2023. And I thought, Hollis, this is perfect timing. We're going to have this great statewide campaign for trails in 2023. We can launch this book and it will all align, and what beautiful timing. But then, we're moms, we have jobs, we have kids, we have aging parents, all those things, and it took a little longer. We didn't hit the 2023 goal for the book, but my work with trails across the state really helped bring some information and some ideas to the project. It truly was a collaboration. What I think was really fun about it, first, we're good friends, but we also bring different skill sets to the project. And Hollis can talk more about her side, but I was able to bring these sort of trail connections, get the data for the trails from all the different partners. So the background that I had with the Great Trails State Coalition really helped lend to that aspect of the book.
And that's a great story, by the way. That you were able to bring your professional experience and life experience, but that you started this as friends. So sometimes co-authors on something, they don't have the friendship, it's more of professional arrangement or academic or whatever. So I love that.
And we're still friends.
I was going to ask, well, you're both here together, so you agreed to do this, I assume.
It is a funny thing, Matt, because we've done some book talks, and
occasionally somebody will ask, were there clashes ever while you were working on the book? And we have a very boring story, because really, truly, we were collaborative really at all levels, and there were things that we just trusted each other on, and it just seemed to fit together really well. So there has not been a scuffle.
I love what we're hearing in the background. I was already really happy that we're hearing the birds, and I believe it might be a train in the distance. We're also picking up the occasional walker or runner, which adds to what we're talking about. So I appreciate that background story. That's really, really fascinating.
I have an appreciation for great design, so I wanted to hear from Hollis about how her background as a graphic designer helped inform the creation of the book. I was also curious to hear more about who else collaborated on the content and design.
My role as a designer has kind of spanned many decades. It's been my life's work, and I'm always passionate about seeing good design and being part of projects that pertain to getting information out into the world that is nicely laid out so that the reader can quickly and easily get information that they need. And over the last basically 2+ decades, I've had a small business that has been involved in hundreds of projects where we've been asked to either put together a team where it will bring together the right people to do the project, or be able to join a team of communicators that need design work. So that was good background for being able to apply to the book design. When Palmer and I started thinking about being able to self-publish and being able to do this project, it really wasn't a question of how we get it done, but who do we pull together to get the book done? one of the folks that was really lovely to have join the team for a semester was a UNCG communications student. Amelia Cook was in her final semester of school and did this really great work with us, very specific to the book. Within the span of a couple of months, helped us to keep organized with our information for the book as we were doing some of the field work. She was also instrumental in coming up with some of the reels that we will be using for the book to think about getting information out there that's just important to either marketing the book or communicating some of the messages that we want to keep getting in front of people. And she even helped on some of the field work. So it was really lovely to be able to enjoy having somebody youthful with new ideas and creative ideas to be able to be part of the book as well and keep us on track. And I think the people involved in the process were some of the highlights of, sometimes people say, well, it's not the product, it's the process. In this case, we are so happy with the product, but it was because of all of the really interesting conversations that we had throughout the process and people that we worked with that really made a difference, I think, to the final product.
Professional photographer Scott Pope also contributed to the project, creating photographs including the cover of the book, and also contributed to the project's website.
Scott worked with us initially on the idea of, we knew we needed a website, and it's something that he is well versed in. He is a photographer and also has a design background. And so it was somebody that we connected with many years ago and knew through the neighborhood and our connection with our kids. He is super familiar with what we were trying to do and was very instrumental in just kind of honing in on what we needed for the website, but also spent a very early morning leaving Greensboro to head up to Roan Mountain and take the cover shot. I think he must have left Greensboro at 2 a.m. in order to get there and set up for a sunrise.
It takes a village to bring a project like this to completion, and that includes the editing process.
So Judy Carrasco was a longtime colleague when I was working in Chapel Hill. She was a young professional that was working with the Durham Chamber. So I had worked with her on a couple of projects, including their annual report at one point. And so a good friend of mine reminded me that Judy was still out there and would be an interesting person to connect back up with. And Palmer and I agreed that that would fit what we needed, and so we have certainly enjoyed conversations and communications back and forth with Judy over the many iterations of the book.
The book was a sort of aha moment for Hollis, a way to bring together her joy of design, passion for trails and food, and her desire to collaborate into a single project.
I feel like over the decades, it's maybe taken me this much time to figure out how to bring things that I'm passionate about together. My entire life, I've felt a love of running and able to be outdoors and enjoying nature. And my entire life has kind of revolved around design as well. I was one of those kids that when I went off to school, I knew what I wanted to do. There was not really a question, and so I had a track and I was always interested in design, but it took a little time to get out into the world and experience kind of that nice small office atmosphere that I liked so much too. So being able to kind of bring together my love of running and hiking and certainly exploring local towns and love of food and photography and design and communications and the people that have been involved in my life just sort of all came to making sense in thinking about the idea of this book, and I was so grateful that Palmer was able to make time and even take the challenge of writing a book together. I think she said it's something that she hadn't really ever thought about, and it is a first for both of us, so there was a big learning curve, but we have both woven together a lot of the things that we're passionate about, and so it felt like a really great project to tackle, and we're so pleased with the first product that we may be working on a second. I think one of the things that has been kind of interesting with a book is that being a designer, I was always focused on taking somebody's content and relaying what that needed to look like to be user-friendly. And so with creating the content itself, that was a bit of a new spin on a project, but seeing that all the way through from start to finish has strangely felt at times hard, but generally looking back, it just sort of flowed, and even having co-authorship on something, we had a similar message, and so similar tone of voice was easy to reach. And so I feel like Judy helped us along with making sure that we had things that read and flowed, but for the most part, we kind of kept it to a really nice pulse and pace and worked really well together.
How did Hollis and Palmer go about deciding how to organize the book, what features to include, and how did they tackle the challenge of choosing just 30 trails from among the many trails found throughout the state of North Carolina?
Well, the book has 30 different trails that are featured, and each of those is a chapter, and they're all paired with those little places to go eat and little reminders of all these good things that are in and around the spaces of the trailheads. But there actually are certainly, and this will speak to the longevity of hopefully people being able to use the book not just to check off the 30 trails, but to come back and revisit them and do some of the little add-ons and build their adventures. And I think that's kind of one of the things that we loved about the concept of the book, which did take us some time to figure out how we wanted to be able to present the material. As a graphic designer, I am often handed the content and create something then that the end user will be able to easily navigate. And in the sense of us putting our efforts together to write and lay out a book, it was how are we going to organize our content and have something that people can easily be able to craft together their day out adventures and be able to come up with hopefully some just different ways to enjoy their time in nature. And we knew we wanted to feature the idea of some mountain trails, some in the Triad, some in the Triangle, and some in Charlotte, so that it makes it kind of those easy day drives from any of those places. That's kind of how we were looking at selecting where our 30 trails were going to come from. And we all have our favorite trails, all of us do, and both Palmer and I were able to have certain ones that we knew we wanted to feature and that could be kind of our favorites shared with the audience. But then there were certain surprises too when we went to do the really fun field work and start to explore some that we didn't know and kind of uncover a few more that we wanted to add to the favorites that we knew we wanted to share.
Yeah, we wanted to feature a variety. Like, we wanted to feature some iconic trails, but we didn't want to feature all iconic trails. We wanted to have some hidden gems. We wanted to represent the diversity of land manager partners on these trails. So some are national parks, some are state parks, some are local government, some are private, nonprofit land conservancies like Triangle Land Conservancy. So we wanted to have just a variety, and some have historic features, some have scenic views, some have water features, so a variety of different things. And that checklist at the beginning we were talking about, or a chart, shows like what different aspects for the different trails you can find. So it's meant to be not a comprehensive guide to trails in North Carolina, but rather an inspiration to start discovering our state. We live in an amazing state. I mean, North Carolina is incredible. And I think people often think, oh, I have to go to the mountains to get a good hike in. And we really wanted to show, and you mentioned this earlier, that sometimes you can just go outside your back door and find an amazing space. And I think a lot of people don't know what trails exist around them. And, even in Greensboro, it wasn't until I really started working with Piedmont Land Conservancy that I discovered all the trails right in our region. There's an abundance. I mean, there's probably 500 trails, probably more trails in North Carolina. So it really was hard to pick 30, but we felt like these 30 are really representative of what you can find. And we just hope that they inspire people to explore more trails in North Carolina.
I wanted to know what early exposure to and experience of nature influenced Hollis and Palmer and helped shape who they are today.
Both Palmer and I had parents that were passionate about nature and conservation, and growing up, I spent a lot of time outside with my parents, and when we would plan outings or trips, whether it was close to home or even something farther away, we always managed to find things to study in nature. So if we were on a trail, maybe near home or even walking around the block, we were never getting a lot of cardio. It was more really looking at what nature had to offer us and finding the things when you go slow, what you might observe. And both my parents, my dad is a scientist and has always been just really very much into understanding nature, understanding certainly the way that our natural world is connected to how we spend our own time, and everything is very interconnected. And my mom and dad both were very good about explaining things and not kind of breezing over things, but really spending time discussing some of the intricacies of nature, I guess. I think as I grew older, we just kept having good experiences out in the world together, and that carried over certainly with what I do with my own family, and our kids growing up got a very expansive view of all the things that are in and around North Carolina, this being their home state. And my husband is a scientist as well, a chemist at UNCG. So we've spent a lot of time, even before the kids could walk, they were in a little pack on our backs, and we were exploring the trails in and around the Triangle where they were born, and always going and doing and showing in nature. And so I think, all of those things have led to decades of just experiences that I treasure, and I hope that other people will also, through this book, be able to share experiences outdoors with their families and good friends and really take the slow approach sometimes. It's nice to get the cardio workouts, but it's also nice to take the time to look at the little things. Hopefully this book will allow for some of that in other people's lives.
I asked Palmer to talk about her early experience and exposure to nature and what laid the foundation for what would flourish into a lifelong love of the outdoors.
Well, I grew up in Greensboro, but my family purchased some land in Ashe County, which is northwest North Carolina, when I was 5. So grew up spending most of our summers up there, up at our cabin. There was on a hill farm, I guess, if you might want to call it. We had a big gardens, we had an orchard, we raised cows, we raised pigs, we had all this going on. And so nature was all around us, so spent a lot of time in that space. I mean, this cabin had electricity, but we didn't have a television. It was all very simple. And there's 4 kids. I'm the third of 4 kids. And so just a lot of time was spent up there that made a lot of impressions. So adventure stemmed off from that place, a lot of wildflower hikes up in the mountains nearby, like we're near Grayson Highlands State Park, which is in Southwest Virginia. The Appalachian Trail is right there. A lot of backpacking trips with my dad on the Appalachian Trail, paddle trips on the New River, including canoe camping. So just a lot of time spent outdoors. Just always loved trails. Just always loved being outside.
That love of nature helped shape Palmer's passion for the outdoors and conservation. She is currently the conservation planner at the Piedmont Land Conservancy, and she helped launch and lead the North Carolina Great Trails State Coalition, which is a group of nonprofit organizations, local governments, and industry partners working together to advocate for increased state investment in all types of trails in North Carolina, including hiking, biking, paddle, and equestrian trails.
So I've been with Piedmont Land Conservancy since 1996, which is a really long time, and it was the perfect job for me. I think growing up with that access to the farm and being close to nature, I had this environmental interest. And after college, I had spent some time working as an EPA, Environmental Protection Agency contractor, dealing with the environment, but it was much more bureaucratic on the regulatory side. And then from there, I went to the Peace Corps and spent 2 years doing agroforestry in West Africa and loved that grassroots work. And so when I came back home after that, when I had discovered the Piedmont Land Conservancy, it's actually founded by a woman named Kathy Trainer, who was like a second mom to me. And so I knew her and I knew what she was up to, and I got back from Peace Corps and I started volunteering with her because I wanted to learn more about it. And it was just this like perfect marriage of grassroots work and environmental protection. And so I just felt like, oh, I have found the best job in the world. And so I have been there a long time with many different roles. My title is conservation planner, but we also have developed nature preserves. And I think that's one of my most rewarding projects at Piedmont Land Conservancy is creating spaces for people to access nature. And, you know, our mission is about land conservation, but it's where people can connect with nature. We can help people understand how important preserving nature is. So these nature preserves have allowed us to do that. So one in particular was the Night Brown Nature Preserve, and that's up near Stokesdale in southern Rockingham County, and a woman had given us this land, and which was amazing. She just called us up one day and said, I'd like to give you 190 acres. And we're like, oh, okay, wow. An incredible gift. But she said, my one stipulation is I'd like you to make this space available to the public. And so we'd never done that before as an organization, so our executive director tasked me with figuring all that out. So we built this whole network of trails. Now there's 4 miles of trails out there, and just I think finishing that, designing the trails, building the trails, and opening it to the public was one of the most gratifying experiences. And to see people love that space, they continue to love it, and it's been a real honor for me to be able to be a part of that gift to the public.
I always appreciate how each time I revisit a trail or any familiar place in nature, the experience is different. Different seasons, weather, time of day, or even our various moods or states of mind can have a major influence on our experience of a place. They say you can never dip your toe in the same river twice, but I'd say that's the same case for trails as well. Being on the trail is a multi-sensory experience, with all of the sights, sounds, smells, and textures coming together to create a sense of place.
Certainly, on foot, on a trail, there are so many different senses that we use. So the idea of being able to look out and around you and see all these amazing parts of nature, and when we're not in front of our phones, we're really studying things and looking out and looking down and looking around. And then, of course, the sounds that we hear.
Like right now.
Like right now, exactly. It's lovely to be able to use sight, sound, maybe you're hearing birds, insects. If you're near water, it's so wonderful to hear the flow of water over rocks. So there's so many things that all these trails bring to us. And of course, our nose knows all. So of course, in the springtime, you have things blooming. Usually there's either the smell of the earth in general, where you're really just, if it's been a damp day, you might really smell the earth. If it's something that is even in the fall, there's mushrooms and all sorts of things that really add to what we are sensing with our nose too. And touch is so important, and there's so much that we can take in with our fingers and even our feet if we take our shoes off and dip our toes in the water. So yeah, whether it's feeling things, the textures, the smoothness of either rocks or bark, and who can resist the soft mosses that we see along a trail. We have to run our hands across those. So I feel like there's all of those good things with sights and sounds and smells and touch, but to taste things. So of course you might have lucked out and there might be a really beautiful little wild blueberry bush that you come across and can sample, or maybe there's some little wild raspberries or the little strawberries or something that we can sample along the way. But generally, since our book has treats in it, we are sort of including that fifth sense and can incorporate taste with either the treats that come from the recipes that we've included in the book that you might have taken onto the trail with you as a little pick-me-up snack, or certainly the tastes that we can glean from either the restaurants that we visit, coffee shops, the different places that we feature in the book, and in and around these sweet towns in North Carolina right near trailheads. So we love that our book helps incorporate all five senses into the experience on the trails and in and around the towns.
I wanted to take another moment to hear from Hollis about trail running. I asked her to say more about how running on trails is different from regular running and how it might influence or change how she experiences the forest.
I've always liked being in and on a trail running because of a lot of factors. The obvious one being you don't have to worry about cars. And so there's a luxury to not feeling like you're always watching your back for traffic or looking oncoming. The soft surface is really truly wonderful to run on if you can stay upright. If it's a rocky, rooty trail, it is sometimes, of course, more difficult and you really have to watch your feet, but it makes the experience really super easy to get in a lot of miles on trails. Feels good on your feet. It generally, time passes quickly because you're either watching where you're going on a trail and trying to look out and see what your next move is going to be because you're moving quicker than just the walking pace, or you're really paying attention to the rocks and the roots and you're trying to navigate where your feet are going. So I will say that with trail running, you get the shade very often on a trail up in the woods. If it's an open field, sometimes those are nice experiences too, and it's great to be on a zen run and not paying attention to your pace and really just maybe going for a time. If you know you want to run for an hour and you just want to be out in and on a trail for a certain period of time, that's also helpful because sometimes it's nice not to pay too close attention to your pace and just get the experience and a little bit of cardio work too.
One of the great design elements that Hollis and Palmer include in the Trails and Treats book is how they highlight cultural and historical trivia for each site in addition to the physical and natural features. Since today we're at the Occoneechee Speedway Trail, I asked Hollis and Palmer to use this site as an example of how they incorporate these extra interesting tidbits about each place.
Well, Occoneechee Speedway is super interesting because it used to be a NASCAR racetrack, and it opened in 1948, and they had races here, I guess, multiple times a year up until maybe it was 1967 or 68. And, some of the greats, like, Richard Petty raced here. And so this is a 1,000-meter oval track, and, we're sitting in this beautiful shade. It used to be open, like it was probably a farmer's field that they created this speedway track on. And there's still remnants from that time of racing here. There's some old cars, there's the stadium seating, the concession stand. So it's really a step into history. And you can just kind of imagine as you walk around this oval, imagine these cars racing around the track. Today it's part of Eno River State Park, and it's open to the public, and it's a different experience. There's a great race here every January. It's a relay race that Hollis has run in and loves.
So that's probably one of the first times and sort of the lead in to learning about these trails was that there is a mention in the book about the Occoneechee Speedway Relay, which is held in January. So fairly often it's a race that has to be rescheduled because the weather is rather unpredictable. It could be 70 and sunny, it could be pouring rain, or you could have an inch of snow. So
North Carolina.
There we go. January in North Carolina. So that was a lead-in for my knowledge of the Speedway and these trails here. And they've been running a race here for probably, it's over a decade. And the configuration is you're just running in the oval, and the baton has to go around 20 times, and you have lots of teams out here setting up the tents along the straightway kind of near the grandstand, and it's always a time to bring runners together and people just that are spectating with the teams and celebrating with barbecue. They always have a barbecue lunch supper kind of thing after the race, and so another perfect pairing of outdoor space and enjoying some exercise and finishing it off with a good meal of some local barbecue.
Let's talk about the treats part of Hollis and Palmer's book. I'm curious how they went about deciding and researching what treat suggestions and locations to include with each hiking site in the Trails and Treats Guide.
The treats are probably my favorite part. I love getting on trails, but I'm always thinking about where the next meal will be. And that's kind of always been my family's journey through life, is that if we're getting together and we're doing something, we're always figuring out where is the next interesting space, family restaurant or a little coffee shop, or maybe that a friend told us about something interesting in a nearby spot that will be. When we plan vacations and we plan outings, it's always including food. And usually we don't leave one place before we know where we're going the next. And with the food within the trail guide, I will say, it's unique to a guidebook because we have not seen anything like that, which is when we talk to families and people that are interested in the guide, like the idea, because oftentimes you go to a space and you've spent the time to research where you want to hike, but everybody does get hungry and you have to spend more time than researching where you're going to go find something afterward or maybe before you start. And so it was a nice way to connect towns and to connect trails and really showcase all of the nearby amazing local sources that are right here in North Carolina. So we are inspired to be able to have done research both in the natural spaces but then also in the connector towns and showcase some of these local businesses that we love. And the ones that we feature came about sometimes from friends that we're recommending, and then oftentimes it was places that we knew about and we loved to also put in the book.
And they're all locally owned, casual places that welcome people coming off of a trail. They're not fancy. A lot of them welcome dogs. Made a note, I think, in the book where that's the case. And some are sweet, some are savory. It's a wide variety. Some are drinking holes, some are eating spots. So it kind of covers it all.
An extra benefit of the Trails and Treats Guide is that it helps support local businesses, and in turn, their partners and providers, by highlighting their offerings and services, especially considering how much the western part of North Carolina continues to struggle to rebuild after Hurricane Helene, and in light of the increasing and skyrocketing costs of running a small business. These local gems throughout the state really appreciate your business and support.
There are so many great people in North Carolina, and when you visit these businesses, you end up in nice conversations with either locals, or if you're in your own town, you may make connections with an owner. The same thing applies to all of these parks. Oftentimes you'll see somebody maintaining a space and you might talk to a ranger, or I'm always in awe of the people, and that's what makes the place so great. I think our opening quote and dedication was partially to some of the folks that help make this place great, whether it's the trails or the local businesses.
Now that the Trails and Treats book has been a success, and Hollis and Palmer continue to promote it, I wanted to know what some of the key takeaways are that they learned from doing the project together.
There's a lot of ways to answer that question, but one aspect is we started with no idea how to publish a book, no experience in that arena, so we watched a lot of YouTube videos, and early on we pitched it to some publishers, hoping that maybe someone would pick it up. And we didn't have any luck, but in the end, that was actually a good thing. We self-published, and what that allowed us to do was give us full creative control. So we could build it the way we wanted to, and Hollis's graphic design skills are amazing, and the book is her layout, the colors, the formatting, all of that. It takes a lot of thought and time and attention to figure all that out. So we understand that process now about the mechanics of putting a project together like this and getting it out into the world. And, when you self-publish, you're your own marketer too. So, you learn that it's on you to get the word out. And so now that's sort of phase 2. We've been trying to do book talks across the state. We've had some great hosts with some of our different retail partners. It's been a lot of fun to get this out into the world, and it's been really well received. I think people appreciate that, oh yeah, this is something I can use, and makes a great gift, and there's a lot of ways to do it, but I think it's also helped us understand the state a lot more. Both of us knew the Charlotte area a little bit, but I think we learned so much about the networks of trails there, and there are nature preserves, and the Carolina Thread Trail. So we learned a lot about the state of North Carolina through doing this project, and that was really fun for us with our field work.
Yeah, we had this probably 3-year journey of always learning something new, and I think one of the things that we're hoping to develop is a talk, hopefully some inspiration to people that want to self-publish, because 10 years ago what we did was not really as possible with the quality of the book, with the idea that we didn't have to break the bank to be able to get a book out into the world and launch what we hoped would be, and really sort of had this good feeling would be a really nice fit to what's already on the shelf. It's not a duplicate of something that's there, and it was part of why we didn't get the answer we might have wanted from a publisher, is that it was the square peg in the round hole. They understood trail guides and they understood food guides, but they did not have a place in traditional publishing world for something that combined the two, and it's got the running aspect as well. And so, yeah, I feel like it's so possible, and if people have inspirations to get books out there, it is not hard. It is maybe a new process, and there were lots of either friends that had contacts that we asked questions. We had lots of people on our team. It was not just Palmer and me. We were lucky enough to work with a woman who was working on her PhD at UNC Greensboro and was in the geography department and was able to work with us on maps. So Karen was amazing in helping us develop the style, and once we had that style, we kept going with all 30 trails. And so we really appreciated the network of people that were involved. And so my skills as a designer go back, and you had mentioned earlier that I do have a small design business, and so a lot of connections I think that Palmer and I both had became this amazing network that we could use and work with and get some feedback from in order to make the book, like, fine-tune it, I guess, and really make it what we were imagining, and we couldn't have done it without the support. One other aspect of the book that we didn't mention was that we do have 3 urban trails. We didn't keep it strictly to soft surface and within the forest, but we did also showcase a couple of these urban trails as part of the 30, because there are lots of interesting things that you can see and do along those as well. But the book process really was a long time in the making, but so possible. And I think being on the other side of it now, it's exciting to get it in people's hands and get it into use. And we've had just really nice feedback from either working with people that are in the local bookshops that want to do talks and hikes and walks with us, and talking with people who have enjoyed using the book. So lots of good feedback, and certainly are appreciative of everybody that was involved to get it here too.
What kind of general advice would you have for someone who gets this book as a gift or gets into their hands somehow in terms of going out and having an adventure? What kind of tips or advice would you have for someone who's using the book?
Just get started, I think. Maybe pick a trail that you're curious about, grab a friend or a family member and head on out. In the front part of the book, we do talk about some things to consider if you're new to using trails. This book is really meant for a broad audience. It's meant for people new to trails, but also those seasoned hikers and trail runners, to provide them with some new inspiration. But for those new to trails, the front part of the book does provide some information about, what's important. Like, it doesn't have to be intimidating to get out on a trail. You don't have to have a lot of fancy equipment. But, we do talk about, pay attention to the weather. That's probably the most important thing, so you're prepared. And definitely take some water, and food is good too to keep you going. So there's some suggestions for equipment and things to think about before you hit the trail. But I think just start where you're at. We like to share a story about Tara Dower, who is a female ultra athlete, and she has the fastest known time on the Appalachian Trail. She completed it last year, the fall of 2024, in 40-some days. Fastest known time, so she basically did 2 marathons a day for close to 50 days to walk those 2,000 miles of the Appalachian Trail. But she didn't start doing that kind of anything on a trail until she was older, and her first experience wasn't super successful. She loved it, but she didn't complete what she had set out to do, and then she kept trying. And I think that it's just start where you're at. That's what she says, and find that group. There's lots of groups to connect with if you want to go out with someone and you're not sure where to start. Depending on where you are in North Carolina or anywhere in the world, there's local groups that have meetups, there's run clubs, there's hiking and outing clubs, there's land conservancies like Piedmont Land Conservancy and Triangle Land Conservancy. We all have lots of outings to get people outside. So it's just find your people and go and enjoy and get started.
Yeah, I would agree that it's a bit of just get started, and don't be afraid to go to the local running stores, outdoor stores, look online. There's so many resources for where to start if you haven't. And if you haven't been doing things with a group, it can be super social and really fun to meet up with people. And oftentimes, certainly the run clubs and these outing clubs are right down the alley of the book, because they'll go out and do an outing and then they'll go get a beer afterward, or they'll meet up and have a little bite to eat. So there's a perfect pairing with finding a club that you feel comfortable with and just making good friends. Back to the friends, back to the good people of North Carolina, and just enjoying what we have here in and around our trails and great towns.
And it seems more important than ever to get out and explore when so many of us are in front of screens and on our phones and things like that.
Yeah, there are scientific studies that show that if you even spend just 10 minutes in nature, your blood pressure just goes down. So it is proven that being out in nature is good for our bodies, our physical health, our mental health, our spiritual health. It's really healthy for us.
As we wrap up this episode, I asked Palmer and Hollis if they had any closing thoughts about their book.
Well, our mantra in the book is, life is short. Take the trip, hike the trail, eat the cake. So we just encourage to follow that. I mean, life is short. Get out there. And this book is for people of all ages, abilities, and backgrounds, and it's super accessible. It's friendly. It's really meant to be just a great resource and inspiration. And that's what our hope is, that people can get out there and just really have a great time.
Yes, I think if it's marred and scarred, that's the best kind of travel book. And hopefully, yes, everybody will enjoy using them in different ways and make notes and let us know what you love. And we always like feedback on things that are in the book and experiences that people have had. So share those with us. Get in touch. Our website has a way to reach us. And we are on Instagram and Facebook. So keep up with us. We want to hike with you. We want to keep up and hear your stories.
I want to give a huge thank you to Hollis and Palmer for taking time to be on the Roving Nature podcast and to talk about their wonderful book. In this episode's description, you'll find links to where you can purchase the book online and links to their website, Instagram, Facebook, and other relevant resources. Be on the lookout as they continue to give in-person talks about their book at outfitters, bookstores, and other regional establishments. That's a wrap for our show today. I appreciate you giving the Roving Nature podcast a listen, and I hope you'll share it with others who might be interested. All episodes are available on www.rovingnature.net, where you'll also find a blog, social media links, and nature-related news and resources. Stay tuned for more episodes to come, and in the meantime, I encourage you all to get out in nature when and where you can, even if it's only a few minutes a day and just outside your door. Learn about and get involved with your local nature and conservation organizations and help support local and national legislation that will help protect our precious natural resources. I'd like to give a huge shout out to local singer-songwriter Abigail Dowd for letting me use her lovely song Beautiful Day as the theme music on today's show. You'll find links to Abigail's artist and album websites and her Instagram on this episode page and on the Roving Nature website.
Beautiful day outside.